We are recording. What's up, everybody? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy, the host of the Vox&Hops podcast. And today is a very interesting, special episode with one of my longtime friends, Mr. Joshua Worthington.
Hello, Matthew.
It's good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Obviously, with this pandemic going around, it's tight, you could say, or a little bit tedious. I'm away from work for this week, so I am actually self-isolating a little bit. So just to make sure I am just staying healthy, staying away from all the trouble, just making sure I'm not stressed out either, because it's getting really, really complicated with me working in retail, for example. It's just too much. But hey, I've got to move on. I've got to deal with it day by day. Just same shit every day, basically.
Well, thank you for working for all of us who have the ability to work from home. So all of you people that are working in retail are often forgotten when the normal days were happening and overlooked, and now you are all basically heroes in your own right. So thank you for being there.
I mean, oh no, you're very welcome. I mean, I don't class myself as a hero. I know for a fact that I'm just someone who just works every day. But the people who needs to be recognized are the health workers. Day in, day out, 24/7, they working their ass off, man. Sure, at times they get sick, and they're taking risks like myself, but they're the ones that are putting their lives on the line, and they need a bigger recognition more than anything.
That's very true. That's very true. So I met Joshua. I feel like I have this memory right in my mind. We became Facebook friends, and prior to 2013's tour with Cryptopsy, Cattle Decapitation, Decrepit Birth, and there was one other band, The Act of Purity, or I can't remember, I apologize.
Okay, you're kind of accurate, definitely right there. It was 2012.
Okay.
And it was in London, the Underworld show, and it was called the Sonic Obliteration show, where it was just one whole day metal show, and definitely Cryptopsy was headlining. Decrepit Birth, unfortunately, they didn't be able to play because it was a ferry that was basically traveling, which was a bit of a nightmare, as I do remember that, and I'm sure you guys did as well, considering you guys were the headliners. Obviously, Cow Decapitation as well, especially when the three of you guys came in with the same van or whatever. It was like Travis and all the guys from Cow was like, right, we need to get this done quickly as possible, because they had to start playing within like 10, 15 minutes, and their set time had to cut. So that's why Decrepit Birth had to really, unfortunately, not play, while you guys had the headline in the right perfect time frame.
Yeah, that sucked. I hate when shit like that happens. It was a stupid thing, because we had taken a ferry to play in Ireland, in Dublin, I want to say.
Yep.
And then we couldn't hang out after the show because we had to leave immediately to go back and catch a ferry. And then when we got there, it wasn't even that ferry that they had booked us. It was the next one. And that one was so tight to get us to the show in London, because it was a long drive. And sadly, Decrepit Birth didn't get to play, and that pissed me off. And Cattle had to cut, which sucks for everyone. I hate that. But it was still a fun show. And I remember you standing right in front of me, center pit, and I feel like you had like some hand drawings for everyone.
Yeah, back in my time when I was living at home, I was in the position of being so depressed and so anxious. Like my mental health, during to this day, it actually does go skyrocket from time to time. So one of the things I really wanted to do was some drawing, kill the time. Music was always the main inspiration in my life as well, because without the music, there would be no me, there wouldn't be no you, for example. Our personalities would be so mixed up with no music. Like, there's no art if there wasn't any music, for example, And, like, for example, when it comes to metal, most moderately of a mental side of music is like there would be no jazz, no blues, no rock if it wasn't for metal as well. So there's always those possibilities what would have happened. But yeah, I always did those drawings because you know, firstly, I like the bands that I always did enjoy listening to, and secondly, it was just something to do to kill the time, you know, and just to make my mental health a bit more ease, you could say.
That's good that you found that outlet, that positive outlet. A lot of people turn to different substances to help put their mind at ease. So it's good that you found art and metal. And then subsequently, every time I would come through London, you would come out and hang out. I was dabbling in giving vocal lessons, and you were a student one night when I came through with Disgorge and Jungle Rot. And
I remember that.
then we were, every time I come through London. So you've been hitting me up saying, Matt, someone should interview you. I want to interview you. You've interviewed so many people. And I said, since we're both home, I said, let's do it. Let's do it. So here it is. Here it is. The very first Vox and Hops. This is only going to be a video. This is not going on a podcast. This is only going to be on the Vox and Hops YouTube and probably paste it up on some social media stuff where I get interviewed by Joshua. This is going to be fun. Joshua hates craft beer, but I said the one stipulation would be that he has to drink a beer with me.
Most definitely. So I have gone for the IPA as promised. I did go for, I was thinking of cider, but no, IPA, craft beer, that had to be the deed. I kept my promise. So shout out to Mr. Sean Hines, because this was one of the ideas. Basically, he drank the same company that he had. There was a different flavor. Basically, it is Vox&Hops, and it's basically a new IPA. It's called Love and Hate. So it'd be very interesting to see how it tastes. It's got fruit in there, so I do love fruit, so it will probably be a perfect mixture for me.
Perfect. Crack that open. I'll crack mine open. I'm drinking, this is the rock star of Vox and Hops right here. It is Boreal's IPA du Nord-Est. I've had it on the podcast many, many, many times, and as you can see, the can is all dented up and banged up because I was carrying it home from the grocery store last weekend, and my bag ripped open and it bounced along the floor, so it's been sitting in my fridge waiting for a good moment to enjoy it.
It's very all day, my friend, so it's going to be nice and cold. And I did one thing extra as well. There was two sizes of a can, so I went for a bigger size instead of the smaller one, just for you, my friend.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you for your sacrifice. Cheers.
Cheers, my friend.
Okay, shoot some questions.
Okay, so let's start with what made you want to become a metal vocalist? Now, I know that you have had inspiration with metalcore from the early years before you actually started becoming a death metal vocalist, as I heard from your previous podcast that you did. So I've done some research. So what was the idea that, again, you want to be a metal vocalist?
Well, it all started off really as not wanting to be a metal vocalist. I really wanted to just sing. And to this day, I still feel more comfortable as a singer than a screamer. But I really just sort of fell into the extreme vocals. It sort of just happened so happenstance and being in the right place at the wrong time. And just being that guy that you know, knew the right people, that ended up placing myself here. It started out really as I was heavy into nu metal. I was a nu metal child. I wanted to be in a nu metal band. I ended up getting into a band that was more like Incubus, Deftones. That was my first band ever. Well, no, there's a few bands before that, but the first one that was really took over my life was this band called Numb that transitioned into this band called Nixtasm. Shout out to all those boys. I love you guys to this day. And then there was 3 Mile Scream that came into my life. And that was really just because, shout out to Mike Marino, who found me, saw me performing with Nixtasm, and when he needed a singer, he hit me up and called me up, and I had been doing nothing for like 10 months. No, when Nixtasm broke up, I was, you could say, depressed and in the dumps and just focusing on school, and even that wasn't going very well. So I just kept, he called me and I was like, yes, right away. We started jamming, and again, the issue, we wanted to be like Seven Dust. We wanted to be like a heavy Incubus. The Taproot was like circulating around back then for some reason. And then we just kept getting heavier and heavier. The more we jammed, the more we got together, the more influences came in. We just kept getting heavier and heavier. The first EP, I think I just screamed just very, very little bit. I was heavily, heavily inspired by Mike Patton, so there was a lot of that frantic shrieking more than a scream that I was doing back in the day. And on that first 3 Mile Scream EP, that's all that's there. Maybe there's a few low barky growls, but nothing that was ever death metal. And then when I finally went and recorded my first A Prelude to Our Demise, the first 3 Mile record was with JF Dajne, the guitarist of Cataclysm. And anytime that I would do my low barking, low growls, he would say like, you know what, you could be a good death metal singer. And I was like, really? I never considered that in my life. Things went on that same record. JF was so busy with Cataclysm and other bands that he was working on, he shipped off some editing work to Christian Donaldson, the guitarist of Cryptopsy. That's how I met him. And then through our relationship there, when we decided to record A Glimpse of Hope, we went back to Donaldson, who had subsequently recorded the Agonists' first record that got them signed onto Century Media. And then we just kept rolling. Chris showing off mixes, as he does to this day, to the Cryptopsy boys, because he's always proud of what he's working on. They were going to play a show.
Shout out to the boys.
Yeah. Funny enough, they were driving to a show to play with... No, this is not right. Sorry. I have two stories mixed up in my mind. He was showing off a mix of 3 Mile Scream's A Glimpse of Hope to the Cryptopsy boys. Flo was looking for something different, and he liked the sound of my voice. He hit me up, and I said, no, I don't want to do it. I want to do 3 Mile Scream. This is my baby. I want to push this. And then when Mike Marino, who I gave a shout out before, who discovered me in this Montreal metal scene, quit 3 Mile subsequently, quit because he didn't want to tour the way that we were going to be touring, or the way that the rest of us would have toured, just living in a van, making no money, spending money to play shows, which is where we were at that time in our mindset. He left the band, and I remember hanging up the phone with him and picking up the phone and calling Flo back and saying, have you found anyone? And he hadn't, so I went through the whole tryout process. And from there, I just had to scream. I had to eventually become the Cryptopsy Screamer. I didn't know what I was doing. I did my best attempt. That became the Unspoken King. And from there, it was just a gradual evolution of just trying to keep up. It's like I'm swimming in a race I'm running in a race against greyhounds, and I'm like a fat pug in the back. Yeah. But it took me time I feel like I'm somewhat more comfortable in the herd now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan since the Unspoken King era, but I've also been a fan of the old school era, like None So Foul. So that's been one of the main masterpieces from Cryptopsy era. But obviously that's been because Lord Worm was in there. So the next question I'm going to obviously add into it. When you started to become the new vocalist for Cryptopsy with the Unspoken King era, did you really think that you was going to be able to take place of Lord Worm's position? Because it was so big that Lord Worm was getting so recognized. He was so loved. He was so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's basically, he was that kind of person that people wanted him to stay in Cryptopsy. And obviously his life was more important than being in a band, because I obviously been hearing all your podcasts and I heard his. So really, my question is just, did you ever think that with you being the new vocalist, there was going to be a lot of pressure, there was going to be a lot of attention as well, because you're going to have to take that high level?
I was terrified when I joined the band. I really thought that this is going to be my big break. My here I is, I made it. And I joined the band on my birthday. I think it was my 24th birthday.
Oh, wow.
That's the day Flo called me. I remember being at my parents' house downstairs. We had one of those rotary phones. And I was sitting on these steps, and I was like having a party with my friends, and I picked it up, and it was Flo saying, you got the gig. So that, I remember that. And then that we didn't jam or do anything until February after. My birthday's in July. So I'm used to being in a band. 3 Mile Scream, we jammed 3 to 4 times a week. We put the work in, and when I joined Cryptopsy, it was not like that. I kept calling and saying, are we going to jam soon? What's happening? And there was nothing happening. And I don't know why that was. So I guess that also added to the fact that I had a lot of pressure once we were going to go on tour. My first tour with Cryptopsy was in 2007. No, sorry, 2008 in Mexico. So I had to cram on my own and learn all the parts. And then I guess that we jammed, but I feel like we only jammed a few times, which is still how Cryptopsy is nowadays, sadly, before going down there. And I never felt ready for anything. So I never felt ready when recording that record. I never felt ready leaving on tour. I know that the guys believed in me, but it wasn't like a unanimous, we all believe in you. Sadly, everyone had their own vision of what they wanted Cryptopsy to be at that time. And it was so fragmented, you know, and it took many, many years. And I still don't believe, I believe that Lord Worm is an entity. That's the word that you were looking for. Yeah. He is the entity of Cryptopsy. None So Vile is a legendary album. There are so many bands that have been inspired by None So Vile. It is a classic death metal record. And then Cryptopsy went and did something completely different. They could have rested on their laurels. They could have just kept putting out None So Viles, but they decided to do something different. They went and got Mike DeSalvo and recorded Whisper Supremacy, which pushed the envelope even that much farther. And then it inspired a whole different style of death metal kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you know, and they just never stopped, never being satisfied. So then they did And Then You'll Beg, which was Whisper Supremacy on crack. And then Mike had to leave the band, sadly. They brought in Methane. They tried to write Once Was Not with Methane. It didn't work out. They had to bring in Wormy. Initially, it was just to have him write some lyrics for Methane, but even that didn't end up panning out. So Wormy decided to come back, and the fans were super happy, but not the Mike DeSalvo fans. So the Cryptopsy fan base has been disappointed for many, many reasons over the years. But I just unified them all together, and they all hated me. So that I'm proud that I brought them all together in some state. But I feel nowadays we are the longest running Cryptopsy lineup. There's been a lot of lineup changes in Cryptopsy, but since 2013, I want to say Flo, Chris, Ollie, and me are Cryptopsy. And even though Ollie's busy with cattle sometimes, and we have Dom come to fill in, we're still the longest running lineup, and Ollie's not going anywhere. We're writing a new album right now. I'm happy with what we've done, and I'm happy that I went through all that I went through to have grown and to have developed a thick skin in this music industry.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a remarkable discovery that for many years that you guys have become a whole unit, like a big Cryptopsy family, with all four of you still in the same positions. Nothing's been changed for many, many years. Like the first album I heard from you playing was really the self-titled Cryptopsy, and I thought, you know what, these guys are kicking it, and you know what, it's fantastic. I thought the whole criticism from the fan base will actually fall back in line and be like, you know what, he's actually done a fucking decent job, and Cryptopsy are back, But unfortunately, there's always going to be criticism, and you know what? It's going to be like that every single thing you do in life. Like, people are going to criticize you for doing what you want to do. They're going to still not be happy of the changes that you make. Like, music should be allowed to have that new whole change and be allowed to discover new things as well. By far, I've heard so many bands with all this new discovery, like basically everything coming up under the sun: doom metal, thrash metal, death metal, progressive metal. These elements, they allow these musicians to have these opportunities to change. So if the fans are not allowed people to have that change for the band, then why are you listening to this band? It doesn't make any sense. Why are you still supporting this band? Is it just because of the old material? If that's the case, then that's okay. But bands are not always going to play the older songs. Like, I listened to Ingested. Shout out to the Ingested. I hope they're doing all right. Basically, I always listen to the first album. They always play every single goddamn time. The Supremacy of the Human Boundaries. I love that album. And when they did that, the Year of the Decade tour, they said that was it, no more of that. And they went to play new music, and I still support them for that, because bands should be allowed to play new music regardless of the criticism. So at the end of the day, people are more welcome to stay. If people don't like it, it's okay to leave. You know, there's going to be no harm from anyone whatsoever. So with that being said, you've released a self-titled album. You've been releasing EPs from the 1 and 2. So pretty much the next question I'm going to ask, it's not going to be like, what's the new release going to be like, but what's the direction of the new album going to be? Is it going to be the same of like 1 and 2? Or are you guys going to go back to something like the self-titled Cryptopsy album, perhaps?
Well, the self-titled Cryptopsy album was heavily written by John Levasseur, who came back to the band to put Cryptopsy back where it's supposed to be. That was his mandate when he came back to the band. And I'm happy with how that album turned out. I turned back to it. We were on tour last year, about a year ago now, with Ingested. I rarely listen to Cryptopsy on purpose, and we put it on one night because we were with Dom, who wasn't in the band. We recorded. We were like, oh, let's listen to some of this, and I'm still happy with it to this day. Very interesting tracks. The new stuff that we're working on, Chris is working very hard on it right now, is very, very disturbing. Very disturbing, aggressive, dark, with those classic Cryptopsy moments. We are trying hard. You mentioned that bands don't play the old stuff. We always tend to play some of the old stuff because we try to please every era of Cryptopsy's, whether that's a mistake or not. You know, every era, we try to please the fans of every era of Cryptopsy when they come to see a Cryptopsy show. You can't go to see Cryptopsy and not hear some Blasphemy Made Flesh, or to hear some None So Vile. You got to hear some Mike era. You have to. It would be silly not to. But a lot of bands, as you mentioned, they just play their new record. They play 5, 6 new songs, and we've never been a band that could do that. It would be refreshing to put out an album. I'm hoping that this new record is something that catches people's attention, and we could potentially put 4 new songs into a set and push the new material. You know, and play maybe a little bit less of the old material, but we'll still always play the old material. But it's aggressive, it's dark. I know my vocals, I want them to be more the Chris Bark voice that I developed on Tome 2, something that I want to use a lot more of, something I have been using a lot on tour. Whenever I do my Lord Worm songs, I'm using this totally new voice that came out from the Tome 2 recordings. So I'm definitely going to be pushing that a lot more. And I just want to have fun. I want to challenge. We always just want to challenge ourselves to make something that we like to listen to, that's interesting, that's still, you know, somewhat avant-garde, and definitely going to be like a spotlight on exactly where Cryptopsy is right now.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you nailed it on the coffin, it's basically challenge every day. You know, you guys got to make a challenge when it comes to making new music. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you guys kill it, I'll be there, and the rest of the other Cryptopsy fans will be there to support you guys. If many people don't like it, it's okay. You know, at the end of the day, the bands are allowed to make new changes, new challenges, new opportunities. In fact, especially when you guys are also independent band, you know, from what I've got told. So with you guys being independent, have you guys been struggling a lot when it comes to like having the influences, or do you think you guys have been layering that free material you guys have been releasing basically?
I feel like that being independent hasn't harmed the material in any way. Being independent has harmed the visibility of it, which is why we are in the process of signing a record deal with a major label. The announcement will come out shortly, but I can't say who it's with. But I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there has been a thing going around where this coronavirus is actually affecting a lot of bands, you guys, a lot of bands that should be touring right now, a lot of festivals that should be continuing to make resection. That's being cancelled one by one every single day. You know what? It's really, really tough on the music industry. So I do want to put a little plug in support, if you don't mind, that all the bands should actually be entitled to have support in this difficult time. So please, anybody that's actually watching this video, listen to it, whatever, pause it, give the bands the support, the money that they need to carry on, because the music industry is actually suffering right now. All the venues that are actually suffering, the local pubs are suffering. You know what? they need that recognition, they need that support, because, like, for example, you mentioned earlier that I see you guys coming in the London shows. You know what? I'm always there first thing to carry you guys' luggage, to carry the equipment and everything, because I am a guy who's actually wants to support the people like human beings, not like just supporting people just like, yeah, here's the money, that's it. You know, I know there's some people like that, but that's not me. And I know there's a lot of people that would not be like that at all. But yeah, by any means, please, anybody that does do this for a sake of a reason, if they got any money, even a little bit, donate the money and support the bands that they need it right now, because you don't know when the next time they're going to be touring in your country or in your town centre or anything like that. You don't know when the next time the shows are going to be able to continue. Like I've been told, it's going to be until next year autumn, which is going to be really, really frightening if that's the case, because nobody knows when it's going to be the safe time to do it, especially with this whole pandemic going around, like people predicting all these things, but no one's going to be accurate at the end of the day. But no music festivals or no music shows until next year. I mean,
No.
surely people are not going to be happy with it. Even all the bands are putting their time and their money into things, visas, traveling, merch, and everything. You know, it's really, really depressing to say that. But at the end of the day, if you've got any money, by any means, please support the bands. That's the main thing I want to request. And I know you've done it as well on your Vox&Hops page as well, where you've been showing links, all the description for the bands that have been, you know, they need the support. Which I have to say, Matt, you know, at the end of the day, I think you are an absolute blessing, man. I love you to bits, and you're doing all hard work for doing all this. So fair play to you, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll put in the description of this video that I have the Vox&Hops alumni, all the bands that have ever been a part of Vox&Hops, where you can go and help them out financially by buying some merch. Merch is one thing. I want to challenge bands to start thinking of new creative ways to interact with their fans, to give them some prime connections, because people want to buy merchandise, but you can only buy so many t-shirts. And some people out there, you know, not everyone has the funds, but some people do, and they still want that extra special thing. I don't know what it is. You know, a lot of these indie artists are doing live streams. A metal band can't do that yet. I don't think technology is up to it. If anyone is aware of how to do that, hit me up, because I want to start doing some interesting stuff for all of the metal fans out there. Not just for Cryptopsy. I want to be an enabler for the whole metal scene to help metal bands connect with their fans during this pandemic, because as you're mentioning, we're looking at 2021 before, you know, shows start happening, and who knows what those shows are going to look like.
Yeah.
Because
I've seen
be
lineups upon lineups that are yeah, I've been seeing lineups upon lineups that are actually favoriting, you know, that would be saying, hell yeah, I would be love to go to that show. Postponed, rescheduled, postponed. And I'm like, that's really bad, especially when it comes to promoters that are actually putting their time and their effort in as well. And as you said, you're starting to become like a label company as well. So with that next question I'm going to add is basically, when did Vox&Hops actually want to become a thing? Because I understand that you have become a vocalist and, you know, you're a craft beer enthusiast. So where did really Vox&Hops come into play? Because, you know, is it really that thing that you really wanted to do, or was it just because it was a new hobby, that it was like a challenge, like you mentioned about Cryptopsy taking a new role with music?
I stayed home with my daughter for a year. We don't watch TV with my kids to this day. The winters here, and also where you're at over in the UK, tend to be a bit brutal. In the afternoons, it gets dark really early. So earlier on, before winter, I would go out in the afternoon with my daughter and play a bit and wait for my wife to get home to do the whole supper, bath, bed routine. In the winter, it gets dark like at 4 p.m. So I started getting bored in the afternoon. So I started listening to podcasts.
Yeah, of course.
Such as the Jasta Show was a huge influence. The X-Man with Doc Coyle, Mark Maron's podcast, and Off Camera with Sam Jones. I really liked his interview approach. I went up for my wife's birthday and was just bouncing this idea off her head. I was like, I can do this. I don't think it's that difficult. This was in April of 2020. 18, I think.
Roughly between 2018.
I think the math makes sense there in my mind. And then that night we came up with the name, and then I started doing interviews the August afterwards that, and then I launched in October 2018. No, so it was April 2018, and then I launched in October 2018 with 4 episodes, and I've just been rolling since then. I've always been that guy. I would, with the craft beer, I would like, if ever I found out anyone that I was touring with like craft beer, especially this beer. I've given this beer to so many musicians that when they come through on tour, or if I'm going out on tour, I bring beer and I share it with them. I'm just that guy. And I'm also that vocalist that I remember I was sitting with, I call him Pepe. His name is Jason from Psychroptic.
Yeah, I love
at Brutal Assault. We had like found this way to like sit up. It's so illegal. Don't do this. It's very dangerous. To sit up on the walls while watching the stage. We were watching Cradle of Filth, and I was just like asking him questions about his vocals, how he's feeling, the new record, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, dude, you always make me feel like this. You always dig out my insecurities. And I'm like, oh, I'm probably just reflecting my own. And that got me thinking that I always ask questions, these annoying questions that I want the answers to. So I figured I may as well just put the two together, and I started doing interviews, and I just have never stopped, you know? So at this point, I've interviewed over 150 people. And it's something that I enjoy. And I was really, really depressed when the pandemic hit, because I had so many things in the work with Devastation on the Nation. I had organized all these craft beer parties where a bunch of craft beer breweries had actually brewed beers for me. It was the first time that was happening, the second time that was happening. And I was very, very disappointed. And I went to a work meeting. I'm still working. And I went to because I'm working from home, but I went to a work meeting. They were using Zoom. And I was like, I could do this. I could use this as a platform to record, and I could reach everyone.
Yep.
So I've done, I think, close to 25 interviews in the past 25, 30 days. I live in this spot right here where I am with craft beer. I'm lucky that I have some good brewer friends. Shout out to Echo Session Ales, JF Le Gentil, and Tatiana and Patty from Overhop for sending me some brews to help alleviate my financial depth when doing interviews.
Stability, you know.
Yes, so cheers to them. Although this is a boring help, but cheers. Yes, but I love it, and I feel like so much has come from Vox&Hops, just making connections with other musicians. I'll meet up with someone, I hardly know them. I do an interview with them. I go home, I edit it. And then the next time they come through town, it's like we're super close friends. There's something about sitting down with someone, sharing a beer, and just asking questions and actually listening. Because on tour, it's very, very hard to do this. I can have conversations on the tour bus, and yes, I'm living with them for 3 weeks, but there's, you know, what's that band? Drabchester Majesty. What's that band's name?
The what, sorry?
Drab Majesty. I'm talking about the Ingested Boys. Love that. So that's playing in the background. And I'm trying to talk to Sean Hines and get something. And then he's like listening to Sam Yates say something that he doesn't like, and he's yelling at him. And, you know, so there's no like real connection. Whereas right here in a Vox&Hops interview, I get right to the bottom, it's like soul to soul. And I love it. So I'm just going to keep doing it until I don't feel like doing it anymore. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
No, absolutely. I mean, as I'm going to say this personally, friend to friend, like we've been friends for 8 years, and, you know, I'm not going to hold anything back. You've been doing a fantastic job doing interviews upon interviews with different bands that people may not heard of before. So basically, I know bands like the Black Day Motor, Ingested, Revocation, etc., but there'll be some bands that I've not heard of, and there'll be some stories that I am keen about hearing. So it's like, it's a new thing to do as well. And especially listen to the podcast. So I've been telling people to listen to the podcast. Obviously been doing sharing about your Vox&Hops page, about making sure people actually get the chance and the opportunity, the time, especially with this whole isolation, to do some listening to your interviews, because you know what, you do deserve the recognition. You put the hard work in it, you should get the reward for it, you know. Like for example, I've been doing photography, but I've kind of stopped doing it, you know, because it's just time, the money, and just basically need equipment. photography for me was one of the things where if I went to a show, I want to try and capture the image, the whole atmosphere, the whole art of what actually we do for loving and what we do for living as well. So yes, I agree that when it comes to touring as well, it's so hard when you try and do an interview one-to-one where there will be some people being so ignorant, there'll be some be so funny, some people will be so quiet, but you know, if you're having this whole technology platform, which you are between you and myself, we have this one-to-one session where we actually do it on Zoom, and you know what? It's technology like this that gives us the opportunity to actually do the interaction, to actually get that chemistry, that bonding, that actually that love that we all have as friends, as brothers and sisters of the metal community, or even in families in general that has the opportunity to use that to keep communicating with the whole family too. And technology nowadays, it does become a little bit of a problematic where whole conspiracy theories comes around to play. Politicians will be posted every day. Negativity comes into play, drama as well, which I try to avoid very, very much. But we should be looking at the blessing part where this is the biggest opportunity that you have got and you're actually skyrocketing it. And I'm sure other people are doing it as well when it comes to press conferencing and actually trying to do like interactions as well. So you know what, man, fair fucking play to you. Definitely. I love it, man. But keep up with the work, all right?
Thank you so much. Yes, it's the internet is a double-edged sword where there's the good and the bad. We are very lucky that we are in a pandemic where we have to be social isolated, where we have the internet, so we can still connect with other people. I've been doing these Vox and Hops Thirsty Thursday virtual hangs, where it's a 1-hour hang every Thursday, and I hang out with, it's open to everyone, anyone. You can show up with a craft beer, a water, it doesn't matter. We chat for an hour. I ask some questions. I host this. Everyone gets a chance to speak. I try to at least grant everyone a chance to speak if they want to. Yep. And we discuss about their lives and how they're feeling. And I'm trying to encourage everyone to just be creative right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have heard a few things from the Vox and Hops page again. So, you know, you're doing the things that people should be doing and try to be a bit creative. So obviously I'm not there all the time on the first day hangouts because the time zones, it's
hard, yeah.
Awkward. And it's not your fault. It's most of the time I'll be asleep. But the one skill I have done, if I can actually share it, I've actually gone bold. So,
I see it, yeah.
You know, so that's actually my little creative thing for the week.
Yeah, so these Vox and Hops Thirsty Thursday virtual hangs happen on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Times. Last week's was really, really packed. So if it keeps going in that direction, I hypothetically might be doing 2 of them back to back, and people might have to book their spots. So, because I want to connect with people, I don't want it to be something where I can't interact with everyone that's there. I want it to be like a pleasant experience where everyone gets a chance to speak. Yeah. So, but there are some negative effects to the internet, which is the misinformation. And if it wasn't for Vox and Hops and Cryptopsy, I probably would not be so connected on social media. I feel like I've become horribly addicted to it. And it's something that I wish that I didn't do as much, but it's somewhat of a necessity when it comes to scheduling interviews, keeping up with my my Vox and Hops heads, as I like to call them. But yeah, it's something that we have to deal with, and it's an addiction like any other.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know for a fact, if I can do a throwback story, is basically when you actually did my vocal teaching for that one show. I still remember to the day, and this was actually back to the show when you mentioned earlier about with Jungle Rot, and you know, you guys were headlining Disgorge as well. So shout out to Disgorge, shout out to Jungle Rot. You know, I hope all the guys are doing very well. Especially when we actually did the vocal teaching in the middle of nowhere, Angel comes out, and you know what? All big puff and everything, he just shows out a big growl, and I'm like, Angel, goddammit, you're trying to kill my vibe, you know, you try to actually ruin me. But hey, I love you, Angel. Shout out to you, bro. I hope you're doing all right as well.
I love the big teddy bear Angel. I remember Diego. Diego came in and he was like, "Man, are you okay?"
Oh man, I miss Disgorge. I hope they're doing okay. I know they haven't been musically interactive, but you know, I'm sure they're doing things very well, especially with families and you know their lives, and hopefully they're doing fantastic. But
I think they're busy with other projects. Angel's in something else. I wish I knew the name, and I know Diego is working on something now. So
Angel is with Abominable Purity, and they're a band from Russia. It's brutal death metal slam type of vibes of music. So he's the new vocalist, and they're starting to try and finish up their new album. Obviously, we don't know what it is because it's brand new, and they won't tell us just yet. But yeah, so obviously, if you're a fan of Angel and his vocals, be ready for the new Abominable Purity album. I heard it's going to be absolutely sickening. So, you know,
absolutely.
definitely.
Okay, shoot me one more question.
One more question. So, and if I have to be very honest, where do you see yourself in the next, let's say, 10 years? You have done a lot of material with Cryptopsy. You're still the vocalist. All the guys are still together. Where do you guys see yourself in 10 years? Do you see yourself still with a record company, or do you still see yourself as independent, for example, where, you know?
It's complicated. It depends how this record goes. I have tried to be positive always, so I'd like for it to go well.
Yep.
Flow is in great shape. As long as Flow can keep going, Cryptopsy is going to keep going.
Yep.
So I would, you know, he's in great shape, so I know that in 10 years he's still going to be in great shape. So I'd like Cryptopsy to still be doing stuff. I wouldn't mind doing a new project. I'm getting a little bit of an itch to do something. I don't know quite what it is. I want it to be brutal. There's a few people that are sending me some riffs now. It'd be interesting to dabble in. I still have my clean vocals that I want to dabble in.
Yep.
I'd like Vox&Hops to transform it to something bigger, of course. I wouldn't, you know, like transforming it into a real goal would be for me to, this is if the whole touring world goes back
Absolutely, yeah.
to real life, to what it used to be. And I could have like a studio downtown where I could take artists come to me and I could film the episodes and have them on YouTube with all the proper everything, like Joe Rogan,
Yep.
but with Vox&Hops and, you know, with like taps and like craft beer right there. It'd be amazing. And have bands play, you know, like a little mixture of what George Stroumboulopoulos, who is a Canadian journalist here in Canada, someone that I've been following since my youth. He's probably one of the best interviewers out there in Canada. He was on Much Music. He was on Much Loud. And then he transitioned to CBC. He's great. And he's still doing some great stuff on Instagram Live every night. So I follow him. Shout out to George. I want to interview George. And
do it. All right.
I just want to keep doing it. I want to connect with more people. I hope that my connections through Vox&Hops lead to more interesting opportunities and bigger things. But I want Cryptopsy to keep going, and I would like to do something new. So if anyone's listening that wants some of my vocals on something, hit me up. I wouldn't mind doing more guest vocal spots too, so that'd be fun. Yeah.
I mean, I'm up for offer. I mean, I know my vocals are not actually pitch perfect, but I'm sure I can do something like a growl or whatever, you know, just to be like, God damn it, this guy's actually done it. And I don't have to do any more vocal lessons for him anymore.
Joshua, thank you so much for shooting me some questions. This was fun.
Pleasure, man.
It's almost like we went on that walk again.
And like one more step, it would definitely come back, man. I know the right time is going to be coming the right place, you know, and it's going to be something that we all going to be wanting very, very soon when it comes to this whole pandemic comes out of the way, for sure.
Beautiful. Cheers. Thank you so much.
Cheers, bro. Take care, man. Yeah.